start my PowerPoint for the objective analysis part. So let me also start the laser pointer. Okay, so this part is clear, right? I was trying to explain today that in the objective analysis we have to interpolate the randomly based observations from the observatories which are located at different points in the space to the regularly spaced grid point of the model, right? And in that regard, we talked that there may be some observations which may be closer to the grid point of interest where we are trying to interpolate. At some other point, grid point, we may not have any nearby observation. There will be very far away observations. So accordingly, we have to give the weightage. Like the observation points which are closest to the grid point, we have to give the highest weightage. And similarly, the observation points which are farther away from the grid point of interest where we are interpolating, that we have to give the less weightage. Okay, and generally it is up to us that what should be the radius of a scan. Radius of a scan means that means from the grid point how far away we should consider the observation, right? That is the radius of a scan. There are two things. One is the radius of a scan, and other is the distance between the observation point and the grid point. See, there are two things. One is the distance between the grid point and the observation point, and other is the radius of a scan. Okay. Now both the things can be different. For example, suppose if this is the distance between the observation point and the grid point, this is a little bit far. But this point, this observation point is very close to this point. In fact, this observation point is even closer to this grid point, right? So these are the distances we call R1, R2, R3, whatever, right? Now it is up to us that whether we consider a radius of a scan, denoted by D, which is encompassing all the observation points, or only few of them, or whatever, right? Generally, as I mentioned probably in the morning, that the radius of a scan is generally taken, especially in the Cressman's technique, twice the distance between the grid point and the observation, right? That means for this grid point, of course, you have got plenty of observation, no problem. But for this grid point, hardly any few observation, or for this grid point, hardly any few observation. So this radius of a scan and distance between the grid point and the observation can vary. Okay. And as I mentioned in the morning that for those points, grid points where there are no nearby observatories or observation point, the objective analysis will reproduce the first guess, right? Because there is hardly any observation here, unless you consider the radius of a scan quite long, like 500 kilometer, 1000 kilometer. These points will not get modified much, right? But those points, the points where we have plenty of observation nearby, they will be influenced a lot by the observation, and that's what we want to. We want that the first guess should be as close to the observation as possible, right? That's what is the interest. Having said that, now let me go to the successive correction method where I lost the connection in the morning. Right, we will start from there again. And we discussed that there are 6 ways of objective analysis: functional fitting method driven by Tanofsky, empirical linear interpolation technique, successive correction method, Cressman's scheme, Barnes scheme, and optimum interpolation scheme. And as I said, this I will discuss tomorrow, but up to this I want to complete today, up to 5. And we were discussing the third one, successive correction method today. All right. So we go to the successive correction method. I'll put the PowerPoint mode. And let me also start a laser pointer again. Okay. So successive correction method. Now this repeat again. In this method, a first guess field is assigned at all the grid points, preferably an earlier short-range weather forecast from the NWP. Now you understand this. This is an iterative process in which the first guess field is modified using a linear weighting scheme to fit the grid point values to the observations repeatedly till the errors are within a specified tolerance limit. Okay. So you keep correcting the first guess based upon the observations. In this method, a first guess or background field is taken, and then the difference between the first guess and the observations are calculated to obtain final grid point values through an iterative process. This method is useful for grid areas where observations are sparse. The steps are summarized below. First of all, estimate the background value at each observation point xbj using the first guess. Okay, it's clear. Calculate the difference between the background value and the corresponding observation value xoj minus xbj. Where this is the observation at the point j, and this is the background or first guess at that point. At each observation point, this is called the prediction error, because your first guess is the prediction from the past 6 hours, right? Based on the initial condition of the past 6 hours. Now, next step is to calculate the prediction errors at each grid points using linear interpolation. Okay, you interpolate the prediction error from the observation point to the grid point. Correct the grid point values based on the distributed errors. Okay, so like that at all the grid points, you will calculate the prediction error. Okay, and try to correct the first guess based upon the observation. And how do you do that? The new value at the grid point at the iteration k plus 1, where k indicates the iteration number. The new value of x, which can be either temperature or a specific humidity or the wind components u and v, etc., whatever. The new value of that variable is equal to the old value of that variable at iteration number k plus sum of all the observations that we have considered within that radius of scan times hj, which is the weighting factor, okay, for that observation, times xoj minus xbj, observation minus background, where k is the iteration step. And then after that, repeat above steps until the value of all prediction error is less than a predefined value. So for each type of observation, temperature, specific humidity, u component, v component, you have a threshold value or predefined value of the errors, and your iterations should reduce the errors to less than that predefined value. This iterative process will forge the grid point values to converge to the observation values. At each iteration step, the weights or the radius of influence can be modified. Okay. As I said, radius of influence is the distance from your grid point up to which you would like to consider your observations. Okay. And I have already discussed about in the morning about that now. So that was the successive correction method. Next is the Cressman's scheme. This is also a type of a successive correction method. Okay. The difference, as I said in the morning, was that the way you calculate the weighting function for each observation, that's what is different in each of these schemes. And this scheme I mentioned in the morning, which you probably missed because I was disconnected, that this scheme was proposed by Cressman in 1959. And this was the first scheme which was used for operational numerical weather prediction in the USA, at the National Weather Service of USA, during the early period of numerical weather prediction. That means around 1960 or so. Okay, in early 60s. It is similar to the successive correction scheme. It uses a non-zero weighting function within a prescribed radius of influence. This radius of influence decreases with each successive scan. Okay. So once you have made one round of iteration, then you can reduce your radius of scan. Like suppose in your first iteration, you are considering the observations up to say 1000 kilometers. Okay. Although you know that the observatories at 1000 kilometers will have the least weightage, but still you have just given some weightage for that observation also. But after you have made first iteration at all the grid points, then in the next iteration, you can reduce your radius of the scan, and instead of considering the observatories up to 1000 kilometers, you can reduce down to say 700 kilometers or even 500 kilometers. Okay, depending on how much error is left, and that you know from your threshold value that you have predefined. Okay, so you can keep reducing your radius of scan at each iteration. In areas of high observation density, grid point values reflect observations, while in low density areas like our oceans, the grid values remain closer to the first case or background field, as I said earlier. The Cressman weighting function takes the form Wj, the weighting function, okay, at any point j is equal to d square minus r square divided by d square plus r square for r less than d, where r is the distance between the observation point and the grid point, and d is the radius of the scan. Okay, and wj, the weighting factor, is equal to 0 if your distance of the between the observation and grid point is larger than the radius of the scan. Okay, r is the distance from the grid point to observation, d is the radius of the influence. This original weighting function was modified slightly as wj equal to minus d square minus r square divided by d square plus r square to the power alpha. We just Cressman tried to put a tuning factor alpha. I mean, all these things are again to put a control in your hand that how much weightage you are going to give to each of those observations. So this weighting function is true if r is less than d. That means the distance between the observation and the grid point is less than the radius of influence, then this is what is used. And alpha is a empirical tuning factor which is greater than 1. Okay. W is equal to 0 if r is greater than or equal to 0. That means your observation point is far away from the grid point where you are trying to interpolate. Assignment of values for d and alpha is empirical and depends on data spacing and desired level of smoothing. Okay. Generally, a smaller radius of influence has less smoothing. Right, a larger radius of influence produces a higher smoothing because you are considering more and more data. Larger is your radius of influence, that means more data you are considering, more data points you are considering. So if you have more data points, your analysis will be very smooth. If you have very less data point, it will be less smooth. In original Cressman scheme, D, that is the radius of the scan, was twice the average spacing of observations. It was adopted to keep a balance between under smoothing and over smoothing. Okay. So that is a Cressman scheme in a nutshell. And as I mentioned probably earlier, that Cressman scheme is a very popular scheme and widely used now, even for, say, for example, a static objective analysis. Static in the sense that those which we are not assimilating. For example, IMD gridded rainfall. You have heard of IMD gridded rainfall, right? Yes or no? The gridded rainfall data of IMD. You have heard, no? No? Nobody is saying anything. Everybody is silent. You have not heard? Hello? IMD gridded rainfall. How many of you have heard about that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay, good. I'm just trying to test whether all of you are there. Are you awake or you are getting
Yes, sir,
sleepy?
yes, sir, yeah.
Okay, good. So you have heard about the gridded data of IMD. IMD produces gridded analysis of rainfall, which is very, very important, very useful. Many people, research community uses that, and not only rainfall but also other parameters like temperature, specific humidity, and so on. Right? So in such kind of objective analysis, in which every day the rainfall which are reported at so many rain gauge stations all around the country, that one plus the satellite observations, they are mixed together, satellite observations of rainfall and interpolated onto a regular grid point. And IMD produces, now earlier we used to have 1 degree by 1 degree analysis. I think now it has reduced down to 0.5. I don't remember what is the latest one, probably 0.5 degree, and 50 kilometer resolution data. And they are trying to further improve it, reduce the resolution, improve the resolution. Okay. So in all these kind of gridded analysis, generally this Cressman interpolation technique is used, Cressman scheme is used. Okay. For operational NWP nowadays, more complicated schemes are used, like multiple interpolation scheme, which we shall discuss tomorrow. So the next type of objective analysis scheme is Barnes scheme. Okay, Barnes scheme. This was proposed by Barnes in 1964, which is a scheme to interpolate randomly spaced data onto a grid with a desired level of accuracy. The Barnes weighting function is given by Wj is equal to e to the power minus r squared divided by 4k, where r is the distance from the grid point to the observation, and k is the parameter to define the response of the weighting function. Okay. K is chosen so that when r is equal to d, that means your radius of scan is equal to the distance between the grid point and the observation, and the weighting function is e to the power minus 4. Weighting function e to the power minus 4 times maximum value of the data at r is equal to 0. Okay, this is the way k is chosen. The radius of influence is chosen so that it is greater than the mean spacing of observation. That means you're trying to accommodate more and more observations. The iterative process for obtaining the endpoint value is as follows. Step number 1. On the first scan, estimate the value of variable at each grid point using the equation xij is equal to sum of all the observations WRD times x1 observation divided by the sum of all the weighting functions. So that means you are giving weightage to all the observation point and doing the analysis, objective analysis, where xij is the grid point value at location ij and xon is the observed value. Okay, n is the number of observation, and WRD is the Barnes weighting function. The next step is to estimate the variable value for each observation location by averaging the 4 closest grid point. Okay. The third step is to calculate the difference between estimated and observed value residual at each observation location. Okay. Calculate the distance between estimated and observed value, trying to calculate the residual or the error. Fourth step is to distribute the differences on the grid points using linear interpolation scheme described above with the Barnes weighting function, this one. Okay. And finally, fifth step is to repeat the last 3 steps until the residual is less than the predefined value. Okay. So once the residual or the error is less than the predefined value, that means you have reached the convergence, and your analysis at the grid points is supposed to be as close to observation as possible, or so-called the closest to the truth. Okay, so this is what is the Barnes scheme. So, in summary, we can say that the analysis value at any grid point is equal to the background fill or the first case fill at that grid point plus a correction. I think I had shown you this slide earlier in some other context. Do you remember the slide? Nobody is saying anything.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I had shown you this slide earlier. So this
Yes,
is what
sir.
we have discussed the way of calculating the correction now by different methods. Now, so many interpolation techniques like successive correction, the Cressman's technique, the Barnes technique, the polynomial interpolation, etc., etc. Okay. So performing an objective analysis, that means analysis value is equal to background plus correction, and correction is the sum of product of the weightage of each observation times new information based on the observation, so that the analysis at any grid point I is equal to background at that grid point I plus some, k is the iteration number, of course, of weighting factor I for that iteration number, the difference between FOK observation minus background. Okay, so this is how the objective analysis is done. This slide also I have discussed, shown you earlier a long time ago. So this is an illustration that how you get the values. The analysis begins with an earlier forecast at first case. So that means at all the grid points of your domain, you prescribe the background fill or the first guess from your previous 6-hour forecast. Okay. So let's say this is a temperature fill. You have the temperature fill at all the grid points, ranging from -3, -4, even up to 22, 23, 23, etc., 24, 27, and so on, 28, and so on. 29 also is there. So let us assume that these are the temperature values at different grid points of your domain obtained from your first guess, that means 6-hour forecast of the model from the previous time. All right. And these lines are indicating the analysis. This is what you are supposed to get after objective analysis. So what will you do is, first of all, the first guess values are calculated at each observation point. The first guess value, that means the first guess value of temperature, which are there from your background fill defined from the model forecast, that you will interpolate to the observation point. Let us say that these are your observation point. This white colored fills are your observation point, observed values. Okay. Let us say these are the observations: 22.5, 21, 21, 17, 24.5. All these white values are your new observations at the current time. Okay. All the green values are your first guess fill. So basically, your aim is to use these observations, white fills, and correct these first guess fill, which are the green fills, green color. Okay. So what you will do? First, you will calculate the first guess at the observation point. That means, these first guess you will interpolate to the observation point, because to avoid the interpolation error. Because every time you do the interpolation, you will have the error in that. Some error will be there always anyway. So instead of interpolating the observation to the grid point, you are interpolating the first guess to the observation point. You get the point? What you are doing, you are interpolating the first guess to the observation point, because your observation is the truth, supposed to be the truth. So you are not distorting your truth. If you interpolate your truth to the grid point, that means you are distorting your truth, because after interpolation there will be some error. So instead of doing that, you are not disturbing the truth, which are the observation. You are interpolating the first guess from this point to the white point, which is the observatory location. Okay. Then the objective analysis uses differences calculated between the data and the first guess. The analysis corrects the first guess. So then you take the difference between the first guess, which is interpolated at these observation points. They are the observation points now. And these are the differences. The difference between the observation and the interpolated first guess value. So somewhere is -5, somewhere -12, -1, -2.5, and so on. So they are the errors in the forecast or the first guess fill. Okay. So this is what errors have to be corrected and interpolated back to the grid point. The differences are interpreted to the grid point. So whatever was the differences, now that you saw in the previous slide, of these differences which are at the observed location, these have to be interpolated back to the grid points here. And all the points you interpolate to the observed error or the first guess error. Okay. Then combining the first guess and the differences at grid point into the final grid point value, which shows the changes beyond the area covered by data. So after that, whatever was your first guess, that you added to the differences. Okay, so that is your corrected first guess. And so this is your new analysis. Earlier it had some other value. You just check the previous slides. Suppose this point was 2. This point, it was first guess was showing 6.5 first guess, and after correction it become 2, and correction is based on the observation which was at the nearest location. So like that, at all the grid points you will get the new values of the analysis, and then you will draw these isolines. Okay, so these are the changes because of the observations or new analysis or the objective analysis based on the observations at that current time. Okay, so this completes the objective analysis based upon 5 different techniques. Okay, polynomial technique, then successive correction method, the Cressman's technique, the Barnes technique, and there was one more. Okay, and tomorrow we shall discuss about the optimum interpolation, which is more complicated and takes into account many more statistical things. Okay, parameters. So up to this is the theory part, which we could not finish in the morning. Okay, and I stop now this part. It's 5 o'clock now. So do you have any question up to this point? Everybody is silent. No question, that means. So anyway, I'll mail you the PowerPoint, later on. You can read, and if you have questions, then we can definitely discuss. So after this, shall I stop recording, or the next thing about the practical that we are going to discuss, then we also record that? What do you say? No feedback. Nobody is talking anything. So anyway, I continue recording. Now tell me, somebody was asking about the practical, something was not clear about the practicals.
Sir, what boundary conditions should we give, and how did that formula come? That also I didn't understand.
Okay, let me now open my other PowerPoint, which is for the NWP exercise.
So, and there were 2 formulas with different orders of accuracy.
Computation of stream function.
Yes.
This is the one. Well, actually, there was difference was because I copied from different sources, and that's why only difference was in notation. So this PowerPoint you have got, right? This file you have got. I mailed you this file earlier, right?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Now, the stream function is non-divergent, right? As per the definition. Okay. Such that you are expanding or defining u is equal to del psi by, let me open the pointer. U is defined as minus del psi by del y, and v is defined as del psi by del x. So the vorticity is then given by zeta is equal to del v by del x minus del u by del y, which is equal to del square psi by del x square. After this differentiation, this with respect to y, and this differentiating this with respect to x. So this becomes del square psi. Okay, so vorticity in terms of the stream function is equal to del square psi. Okay, equal to vorticity. And this is called the Poisson equation. Right? This is called the Poisson equation. If del square psi was equal to 0, then there was the Laplace equation. Right? Laplace equation. But since del square psi is not 0, it is equal to zeta, it is vorticity, so this is the Poisson equation. And you know the vorticity field, you have the vorticity field because you have computed it yourself, right? Divergence and vorticity, you have computed yourself, isn't it? So once you have this field, then to get the psi, you just have to invert this, Laplacian del square to get the psi, which is the stream function at all the grid points. So from the vorticity field, stream function can be computed by inverting the Laplacian using a numerical method, which is generally iterative procedure. We were just discussing iterative procedure also earlier in objective analysis, like the relaxation method, also called another method by Jacobi's or Gaussian cycling methods. So many numerical methods. Okay, generally relaxation method is good enough to invert the Laplacian to get the psi value. In our case. So now actually this notation is changed. Instead of psi, I'm just writing this phi type of things. So when phi is smooth real valued function on the real numbers, second derivative can be approximated by d square pi x by dx square equal to pi x minus h, where h is the grid distance delta x. So this is actually basically the second order central difference. If you recall, I think next grid here. If you recall this, you have studied the finite difference technique, right? Forward difference, central difference, backward difference, all these things I've already studied. Yeah. So you take the second order differentiation. In case of first order del u by del x, it is simply difference between u at this point minus u at this point divided with this grid distance for the forward difference. If it is for central, then for this point, the difference of u at this point minus difference of u at that point divided by 2 delta x, that is central, right? So that is the del u by del x. For del square u by del x square, you will get this kind of thing. Del square u by del x square, you will get u at x minus h minus 2 times u at x plus u at x plus h divided by h square, which is the grid distance, plus the remaining terms of the order of 2. Okay. Now using this in both dimensions for a function of phi of 2 arguments at the point xy, and solving for phi xy results in phi xy from this equation. If you solve it, you will get, now in our case, just substitute this. Now substitute this with the this plus the second term, that is d square psi by dy y square also is there. Okay, that two terms, sum of that is equal to zeta, the vorticity. Okay, so the new value phi xy is equal to 1/4 of all this, and this is what you will get after substituting. Minus h square the square phi xy, and plus the terms, remaining terms of the order of 4. Now to approximate the solution of the Poisson equation, this one, numerically on a two-dimensional grid with a grid spacing h, the relaxation method assigns the given value of function phi to the grid points near the boundary and arbitrary values to the interior grid points. First case, just like we had the first case in the objective analysis, here also use the first case. And I'll explain you now further about the first case. And then repeatedly perform the assignment of phi into phi star on the interior grid points. The phi star is defined by this one, this expression. Okay. So just see, this is exactly the same as this one. Okay, minus h square. Now in this case, del square phi xy, which is nothing but your zeta. Del square psi is zeta. Fxy is zeta until the convergence. I have given also some hints because I found that there are some books which are giving the Fortran codes, very numerical techniques, including the relaxation techniques. I found that if you just go to this website, you find the Fortran code for the relaxation method for your just help hints. There is another book also on this website where there are so many programs given, Fortran codes are given to compute different numerical techniques, including the relaxation technique or Jacobi's method, etc. This is just for your help. Okay. In case if you find difficulty in writing your own Fortran code, you can take the help of these codes. So coming back to our case, now this already you understand. This, consider a toy example with just few points. Del x y one third, and we are assuming that we are the value of psi, your stream functions at all the grid points. Okay. So in this diagram, the value of the variable in green are, that means they are the boundary values, green color, boundary values. They are prescribed, let us say. And at the inner points, they are the inner points of the grid. Okay. At the inner points, you use the first guess or some background fill or some arbitrary value of psi. Now you have the option again here. Anyway, you are using the first guess as the forecast from the previous cycle, or no, you have the option, because first case values are generally arbitrary values, right? If your arbitrary value is something similar to the actual value, now your iteration will be faster. Your convergence, you will reach convergence sooner. If your arbitrary value is a wild guess, now which is too far away from the truth, from the actual value, then your convergence will take time. Right? You will have to have more number of iterations. So just forget that. Suppose if you do not have any first guess, you do not have any boundary values. I'm saying that these are the green colored values, which are the boundary values which you prescribe. Suppose if you do not have any boundary values, but you have anyway the value of the psi at all the grid points from the first guess obtained from the previous forecast. So in other words, even your boundary values are there included in your background fill or first case. Okay. Or if you have nothing else with you, suppose you say that is where can I get the forecast of stream function as a first case. Suppose, okay, although you can get it from the ERA data, from the ERA data, because ERA data, have you seen all the data which are available in ERA file? There will be a stream function also, I think. Have you seen that? In the ERA data, have you seen that there is a stream function? Yes or no?
Sir, I checked, it was not there.
It was not there. Okay, it was not there. So it was, if it was not there, then the thing is that means you have to somehow calculate yourself. Okay, I assume that it is there because generally it's in the WRF output when you run the WRF model for the real cases, and if you see the grads CTL file, now there is a standard grad CTL file which includes so many fields. Have you seen the standard grad CTL file? I think a few days ago, Anis was showing me so many fields. I think he ran the Seabreeze,
Yes, sir.
Seabreeze case, and since he did not know that which CTL file, what CTL file, what variable as you considered, so he now showed me the entire CTL file of the WRF model. Now, if you look at that CTL file of WRF model, you will find the stream function also should be there in that list. Have you seen that, Anis? You have not probably.
No, sir, I haven't seen yet,
You
sir.
did not notice it, yeah. Probably you did not notice it.
Yes.
So many fields are there which are the grads output, and that generally also include the stream function. Okay, and it is up to you that which field you want to plot or what is the field of your interest. That is up to you, right? Like in your case, sometimes you are only interested in the U and V. Fine. Somebody is interested only in the rainfall. Fine. Okay. Somebody is only interested in the say geopotential field. Okay. So like that, the stream function is very important because it is non-divergent field, and especially 200 millibar stream function is indicative of your surface synoptic features. And that's why people generally plot the 200 millibar stream function. Okay, and also by doing that, you also learn how to invert the Laplacian, how to convert the calculate the psi field from the zeta field. Okay, now guess. So in the preceding diagram, the values of the variable in green are already given at the boundary. So what I said was that suppose if you do not have the boundary values, then you prescribe it from first case. Now you say that in the ERA you have checked there is no stream function. If there is no stream function, then what I would suggest is that, and since you can take any arbitrary value anyway, only thing is that it will take a lot of time to convert. So what you can do is, the approximate magnitude or order of the magnitude of the stream function. I have given in my slide later on. The approximate order of the magnitude of the stream function is 10^6 meters square per second. Okay. So just assume that at all the grid points, your stream function is equal to same approximate order 1 times 1 into 10^6 meters square per second at all the points. So they are all arbitrary values. So after your iteration, because you have got the zeta anyway, the vorticity fields are available to you, right? Because you have calculated that, isn't it? All of you?
Yes,
You have
sir.
computed the
Yes,
you have
sir.
computed the vorticity field at all the points. So your psi field, the stream function will anyway get converted based upon the vorticity field because you are inverting that. So even if you do not have the value of psi at the grid point, it will anyway automatically get calculated because you have got the vorticity here after you invert the Laplacian based upon the relaxation technique or whatever technique. Okay. So what I said is that you assume that at all the grid points, your stream function is approximately 1 times 10^6, which is the approximate order. Just like the order of the magnitude of the divergence, kitna hota hai? What is the magnitude, order of the magnitude of divergence and vorticity? Tell me.
10 power minus 4, 10 power minus 5.
Yeah, exactly. You have -4, -5, sometimes even -6 also, right? That is the approximate order of the divergence and vorticity. Similarly, the order of the magnitude of the stream function is about 6. So you assume that at all the points, the stream function is equal to 1 times 10 power 6. And you start iteration. After a number of iteration, because you are anyway prescribing the zeta at all points, your stream function will get adjusted. So we have 4 unknowns and that is for a smaller toy grid, 4 by 4 grid points. Need 4 equations to determine their value. Let us first approximate the second partial derivative in the PDE by a second order center difference. So, same thing which you just discussed earlier. Del square u by del x square at the point ij is approximately equal to u using the center difference. Okay, ui minus 1j minus 2 times uij plus ui plus 1j divided by del x square, and similarly del square u by del y square is equal to this one. Okay, and for notation, you just replace u by psi, which is your stream function. This means that this plus this plus this is equal to zeta, right? This is what is your zeta. Okay, so your steps for the relaxation technique is that define the value of psi at the boundaries, and since you have no value available with you from the error, so just make it 1 times 10 to the power 6, which is the approximate order of the magnitude of a stream function. Provide the psi at intermediate points from the first case. First case is only from the previous forecast. Now, if you are running a real forecast of the logarithmic model, then you will automatically get that. If not, then just use this as the first guess. Some arbitrary value. Then compute psi star, the new value of psi at the inner grid points from the equation. Okay. H equal to delta x. Psi star, the new value of the psi in the first iteration number 1 at the point xy is equal to 1/4 of this one, right? This fourth coming from the earlier expression which I showed you in previous slides. Psi x plus h comma y plus psi x comma y plus h plus psi x minus hy, central difference plus psi x comma y minus h square, which is the delta x, your grid distance, times the relative velocity at xy. Now check whether psi star, the new value of psi after the first iteration, minus the old value of psi, the first case, is less than or equal to a threshold value, let us say 1000, because since your order of the magnitude is 10 power 6, so 1000 is reasonably good threshold value. If the value converges to this point, to this value, that means your values are okay, reasonably good accurate. So if yes, then values are converged. If no, then iterate the steps 3, 4, 5. Again, compute the new values of psi star at all the grid points. Best form, all values of psi. Again, check psi star minus psi. And if yes, they have convert. If not, then go back. Okay, so this is how you do the relaxation. Use the relaxation technique to solve psi from zeta field. Okay. And as I mentioned that now you can write Fortran code yourself, well and good. If not, so many hints are there. Or even you can use in this case some software, numerical algorithm software to get the value of psi, or invert the Laplacian. Okay, so this is what I mentioned. Do you have any doubt? Still any question? We can further discuss.
So, if the grid is a rectangular grid, then in the formula only h square.
Oh yeah, I assume that it is a square grid. Del x is equal to del y. We're assuming that. Okay, your delta x and delta, because you are anyway taking 0.75 error data, 0.75 degree by 0.75.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah, somebody is taking 1 degree by 1 degree. Somebody is taking 0.75 by 0.75. So anyway, your delta x is equal to delta y. For generalized case, anyway, delta x, delta y may not be same, but in your case, they are same, right?
Yes.
Any other point? Maybe more points, more doubts will come when you start really coding, writing the program, and calculating.
So, what is the difference in psi and psi star?
Psi star is your new value after the say iteration. Suppose your first iteration, you have a first guess, okay, and the first guess has to be corrected based upon the observation. In your case, observation is beta, the vorticity, the relative vorticity. So based upon the zeta value, you are now correcting the first guess psi, and the new value of psi, which is denoted by psi star. Psi star is denoting the new value of psi, and which is calculated based upon the value of psi at all the 4 grid points surrounding the point of your interest. Because this is nothing but the 4 surrounding points: x plus hy, x y plus h, x minus hy, x y minus h. They are the 4 surrounding grid points. Suppose if you are trying to compute here, these are the 4: this point, this point, this point, and this point. They are the 4 surrounding point of psi. If you look at this grid, then that expression is actually the 4 surrounding points at the point of your interest. You are not calculating at the boundary because you assume that boundary values are prescribed, right? So you are only calculating at the inner points, just like your vorticity and divergence that you have calculated. Of course, you used forward difference and backward difference at the east and west boundary, north and south boundary. But in this case, generally observed values are supposed to be available at the boundaries, which is from the previous cycle. So you don't calculate at the boundaries; it is already prescribed from the previous forecast, and you only calculate at the inner points. This is an illustration for 4 by 4 point, but you can have 1000 by 1000 point. Right? So then your new value of psi star, which is based upon the average, actually is nothing but the average of the 4 points, because it's one fourth of the this one, right? Average one of the 4 points minus h square is the distance delta x delta y times zeta at x1. So this is a new value of psi star, which you will compute at all these inner grid points here, all the points and so on for the entire domain, right? And now you will check whether your new psi, that is psi star, minus the old psi is less than a threshold or equal to the threshold value or not. In this case, in the case of extreme function, 1000 is okay because magnitude of extreme function itself is about 6. This is only to the power 3. This is reasonably good. Epsilon, we say epsilon, and threshold value, the tolerance error. Nothing but the tolerance, error tolerance. You are tolerating the difference up to 1000 because its order is to the power 6. So you are tolerating up to the difference up to the power 3 only, right? So it's okay, but it, I mean, depends on what field you are using. For temperature, you can use this much, right? Because temperature is 20, 30, 40, or in terms of minus, maybe minus 10, minus 20, if you are going up and up above in the atmosphere. So it depends on what value. I mean, you are trying to iterate, converge, right? So for case of extreme function, this much of tolerance is okay because its actual magnitude is to the power 6, and this is only to the power 3, so no problem. So if yes, that means convergence reached. If no, then iterate 3, 4, 5. Okay. So this is what it is to compute the stream function. Just try, make an attempt yourself. No, by coding.
Sir.
Ah.
Sir, can you go to last slide?
This is the last slide, I think. See what the ending okay.
Previous one, sir.
Previous slide.
Yes. Sir, in our case, as you said, in your diagram, last it means corner left corner point is 0 0, but in our case it is 1 1, sir. Yes, sir, 1 1.
तो कन्वेंशन है,
सर प्रॉब्लम नहीं होगा,
वो तो नोटेशन है,
उसके अकॉर्डिंग चेंज कर देंगे. Yes.
हाँ, ये नोटेशन है. This is just a notation. Starting point. Now, in your case, you said 1, 2, 3, 4. यहाँ पे 0. It is just a notation. लेकिन कंप्यूटर प्रोग्राम में तो 0 देना नहीं होगा ना. Because you cannot start with 0. I equal to 0 do I equal to 0 to 10 नहीं होगा ना. 1 to 10 होगा ना. So you say 1.
Yes.
Starting point is 1. 1 to m
Yes.
and 1 to n. Whatever notation it is. So this is just a notation for the illustration. Okay.
Okay,
Index. We are just
सर
बोलो।
सर जो इससे नेक्स्ट स्लाइड है उसमें जो आपने फॉर्मूला लिखा है सर, उस फॉर्मूले में जैसे मेंशन है एक्स वाई, तो जैसे सर अभी हमने डाइवर्जेंस वर्टिसिटी कैलकुलेट किया है, तो हमने वहाँ एक्स वाई की जगह हमने 1 1 या 1 2 जो भी मतलब पॉइंट्स का प्लेस जो डिफाइन था उस तरीके से हमने उसको डिफाइन किया। तो यहाँ पे भी हम सेम उसी तरीके से करेंगे, और
हाँ,
एच का
हाँ,
वैल्यू जैसे आपने बताया कि वो ग्रिड पॉइंट के बीच का डिफरेंस है, तो जैसे लाइक मेरे केस में मैंने 1 डिग्री का लिया है, तो 100 अप्रॉक्स 100 किलोमीटर हो जाएगा ग्रिड पॉइंट का
हाँ।
वैल्यू, तो एच का वैल्यू हो जाना चाहिए 100। तो जैसे
No, 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 no,
एक्स,
no, 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 no.
यस सर, यस सर, यस सर।
No, no, this is just a notation. X plus h means your next grid point. X plus h means I plus 1. Here, x plus
ओके
h
सर, ओके
means
ओके
I plus 1.
सर।
And y means j. Here, actually, I should have more simplified according to your जो तुम्हारे सेट बैठा हुआ है मन में उस हिसाब से. I should have written here
यस
psi at I plus 1 comma j plus psi at I comma j plus 1 plus psi at I minus 1 comma j plus psi at I comma j minus 1.
ओके
I should have written that way. I think that would have been more convenient for you to understand. Is that clear? Time minus
sir.
h square times h square, nothing but delta x delta y. Zeta at ij. Xy here means ij. So psi star at ij, you can write down psi star at ij, or let me just correct here, if I can do it now in front of you, it will be probably more clear. Let me see if I can quickly demonstrate it here. Test. Controls. So this is your I. In your notation, this will be J. I plus 1 J I J plus 1 I minus 1 J I J minus 1 will be I minus J. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
यस सर, यस सर,
Yes.
यस सर।
So this is what it is.
एक और पॉइंट है सर।
एक मिनट को कलर चेंज करना थोड़ा, it will be strictly different.
Yes.
Maybe I'll make it which color? I'll make it yellow. और पॉइंट है दूसरा, what is your next point?
Yes sir. Sir, can you go to first slide where the stream function is started?
This one?
Yes sir. Sir, yes sir. सर आप बोल रहे हैं कि हम लोगों को वर्टिसिटी से स्ट्रीम फंक्शन को कैलकुलेट करना है सर। तो अगर मतलब वो ठीक है सर, लेकिन अगर हम कोई दूसरा वे यूज करें स्ट्रीम फंक्शन कैलकुलेट करने के लिए, तो इज इट पॉसिबल सर या नहीं?
कौन सा दूसरा वे?
मतलब
Like?
पता नहीं ये फिजिबल है या नहीं, मैं जस्ट आपसे पूछ रहा हूँ सर कि जैसे ये जो फर्स्ट इक्वेशन है सर, जो जिसमें u और v का वैल्यू है, u इज इक्वल टू माइनस डेल साई अपॉन डेल u y है, तो इस फंक्शन में सर अगर अगर हमें u और v का वैल्यू पता है, तो हम फर्स्ट केस लेते हैं यू के लिए लेते हैं। तो यू का वैल्यू अगर हमें पता है, जैसे कि हमारे पास वैल्यूज हैं यू की जो हमने इरा डाटा से लिया है, और डेल वाई का भी वैल्यू है हमारे पास 1000 मतलब 100 किलोमीटर का हमारा ग्रिड लेंथ है। तो हम वहां से साई की वैल्यू कैलकुलेट कर सकते हैं सर, मतलब इंटीग्रेशन करके सर, हम उसको उस तरफ लाके रिवर्स करके इंटीग्रेशन करके, इज इट पॉसिबल सर?
वहां पे तुमको प्रॉब्लम हो सकता है। यू आर सेइंग दैट सिंस यू नो द वैल्यू ऑफ u and v and you also know the value of delta x and delta y, so you will try to calculate directly the value of psi by solving a polynomial equation. I mean, you will have so many
यस
polynomials.
सर, यस सर,
हाँ,
यस सर।
तो
सर
उसमें
एज पर माय अंडरस्टैंडिंग द
हाँ,
स्ट्रीम फंक्शन, सर क्या होता है कि स्ट्रीम फंक्शन जो है कि अगर हमारे पास स्ट्रीम फंक्शन हो तो उससे हम किसी भी पॉइंट का u और v का वैल्यू बता सकते हैं। तो अभी हमारे पास u और v का वैल्यू है, तो हम स्ट्रीम फंक्शन का वैल्यू भी तो बता पाएंगे सर,
लेकिन
लॉजिकली
उसमें क्या
देखें
होगा
तो।
कि जो तुम सोच रहे हो, I mean, from this equation also you will be able to invert the value of psi from u and v. Lekin that will be practically viable if you have only a few grid points. Like you will probably invert it using some polynomial equation, third order polynomial equation. Let us say you have got only 3 points or 4 points. But since you have got thousands of points in your domain, कितना था तुम्हारा? 41 point by 41 था तुम्हारा, कितना था?
6141 सर,
हाँ, 61 point.
61।
उतना बड़ा point में प्रॉब्लम हो
यस
जाता है। You will not be able to solve that many equations. Thousands of equations you will not be able to fit in. See, क्योंकि ये तो 2-4 पॉइंट के लिए क्रॉस मैट्रिक्स है तो हो जाएगा।
यस सर।
So basically, and
इफ वी
also
आर यूजिंग इंटीग्रेशन, यस सर, अगर इंटीग्रेशन अगर हम बाउंड्री कंडीशंस लगा के अगर इंटीग्रेट कर सके, मतलब फिजिबल है या नहीं, मैं बस आपसे पूछ रहा
it
हूँ
is
सर,
not
मुझे भी नहीं
feasible.
पता एक्चुअली।
It is not feasible. That's why people, because you have established this relationship here. In this case, the relationship has been established. This is actually non-divergent, right? This is non-divergent, and
यस सर, यस
from the non-divergent wind fill, you are calculating the vorticity. That is, psi is your non-divergent wind fill, basically. So you have got similarly del square chi also, right? Which is the velocity potential. Velocity potential. There are two things
Yes, sir.
generally discussed together: stream function and velocity potential. So your stream function is non-divergent and velocity potential is rotational. Right? So there also you will calculate using this one only, this method only. Okay. So this is actually established theoretically. What you are looking at this equation, seeing here, is established theoretically. Simple definition, vorticity का simple definition को use करके, and then you are calculating this. So for numerical solution, our domain, which is real domain of say either Indian region or the global, this way you will have to do. Okay. There is another equation also called rho square phi. Rho square phi. Geostrophic, vorticity उसमें देखना पड़ेगा. You have to just see the dynamic methodology book. So you can use phi, the geopotential, in some other cases, but in this case you are using the psi, the square psi equal to zero, which is theoretically established as the definition for the stream function. Okay. So this is the simplest
Yes.
way rather to calculate the stream function. This is the simplest way. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
So
You tell me.
So, as the first guess, do we give it at every grid point and every level?
Don't worry about the other levels. Calculate just one level because you are not doing any vertical differentiation.
Okay.
Right? So just calculate only one level. Assume that you have got only one level. Say 200 millibar. I mentioned in the exercise. Calculate the stream movement at 200 millibar. So whatever you have got the value of zeta which you have computed 200 millibar, use that value of zeta at 200 millibar to compute This has to be over. Only at, if you are able to calculate at one level, you guys put a do loop and calculate at all levels later on. But here there is no vertical definition involved. Right? It is only on a horizontal two-dimensional field. Right? Zeta is available on a two-dimensional horizontal field. Pressure surface equation, okay, 200 millibar, 500 millibar. So calculate level by level for all this.
Okay, sir.
Any other point?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay.
No, sir, that's all.
So fine. So you will find a lot of difficulty when you start doing yourself. No, since it is only 5:40, I see. So shall we stop today?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So fine. Let me stop everything. I see 7 people are there only. I think. So बाकी 5 तो है नहीं. But anyway, I'll save the recording. So let me now stop one by one all these things. Stop presentation and then stop recording. Stop recording.